Guys, welcome back to this. Guys, welcome back to the show. You're watching the AM Club on MS74 TV, home of fun, fearless, and factual programming. My name is Godwin Nambo. We're about to jump straight into Lifestyle Daily. We just finished an exciting Coffee Daily, and like we said in the beginning, we are discussing boundaries. Now, the conversation when it comes to boundaries is quite wide, like I said. So we'll attempt to narrow it down to certain places and try to tackle it, okay? Joining me to have this conversation, she's been here before severally. Akosia Nana Alexis Hinewa, Benewa, Opoku Ajiman. Akosia, Mami Chana short, why?
From Nana Alexis.
Nana Alexis. Into Akosia Nana Alexis or Benewa Opoku Ajiman, but I'll call her Nana Alexis. She is a brand consultant and life coach. Me pacha to sing. Good to have you again.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Red is a very lovely color.
Thanks.
Sweet. Let's talk about boundaries. Was that me overstepping?
No, that's fine.
Are you sure?
No, that's fine.
It's fine. Boundaries, so.
Oh, it's boundaries, but everybody knows where the S end. For me, it's an open space for you to be able to compliment what
you're wearing.
Yeah.
So anybody at all can compliment what you're wearing?
Yes.
Anybody at all?
Anybody at all. For me.
Is it personal? It's personal. But there are other people who don't like that.
Want that from other people, yeah.
How do you know if someone won't want to be complimented?
You complimented and I appreciated it. So that's me affirming or giving an understanding to. Yes.
So you have to at least try. If they slap you, they know that.
I'm not sure anybody will slap you by silent gestures. You should be able to tell if they appreciate your compliment or not.
We understand physical boundaries. So we come to MX24 TV, there's a boundary. This is our station, you know. We've walled it. You go to certain places, there are fences. Even with countries, you have borders, then you have, you know, the immigration people there, so you know that there's a boundary. So we understand physical boundaries. Let's talk about the boundaries we're referring to now, mental boundaries, isn't it? Okay, could you tell us what they are?
Mental boundaries have come a long way to help people shape how they process thought, their intellectuality, and then the ability to embrace other people. Because for you to exist, you need your brains to function well. Your cognitive thinking should be able to function properly. So you can tell, oh, if I'm relating right with this person or this person is relating right with me. Whether I would appreciate it or my emotions will come to play or not. These are the components you want to look out for when you're talking about mental boundaries that you're setting. However, many people may overstep their boundaries on the grounds of mental boundaries, in the sense that, okay, I walked into the space, I see many people smile at me. I am quite a reserved person, so maybe I may not smile back. For the people around me may feel I am a bit some way. A cliche of maybe too known person, or maybe
no welcoming.
No welcoming.
Not a welcoming person.
However, maybe that's my personality, and I could have done much more better to be able to communicate that to them, for them to understand that mentally I'm not prepared for that environment, or perhaps I'm just not ready to meet you in the way that you smile at me. But it takes a longer way. It takes a longer action or a constant practice to be able to build or put that thing together of your mental boundaries that you're setting. However, remember, everything you act, you do, other people see and then represent that or relate with you based on how they are seeing these things. So example, I came in, they smiled. They built a thought. Do I want that thought to be with them? It goes back to branding. I will chip that in a bit, because branding simply says that what you see or what the person says after the experience is what becomes your brand. It is not about the color, it's not about the logo, it's not about the things you flash around, the symbols here and there. It's the experience they have when you're gone.
Experience.
Yes.
Okay.
When you're gone, when I came to MX24, I would say they were beautiful people, they smiled at me, they appreciated me and all that. That becomes the brand. So I'm speaking the brand.
Okay.
So if you're a person and then you have the mental boundary set to you and you want people to appreciate you based on what is in your mind, you should learn how to communicate it effectively to people.
Interesting.
Yes.
So is boundary for you or for the person you're setting it for?
It's for both people. Because for communication to take place, there should be an understanding. There should be compromise. You should consider the person receiving you and then what you are also doing. Reason why some people would not want to set boundaries because they don't want other people to disrespect them or even put them in the rejection space. However, it's important to realize that whatever decision you make, there's a pro and then there's a con. However, people may accept or may not accept. So yes, you set the boundaries, all right? It may be for you to feel good about your emotions, to feel good about your mental stability and all that. But remember, you exist with other people. They also appreciate you the same way you want them to appreciate you. So there should be that understanding for both parties.
We'll come to how far is too far when setting boundaries, but I want to remain on setting boundaries, the basics of setting boundaries. So you said that is for the person setting the boundary and for whoever it's being set for. So for me as a person, if I know that my happiness means a lot to me, my peace means a lot to me, and so there are places where if I don't take care, it could be overstepped, I set a boundary.
Absolutely.
You give us typical examples of how those boundaries can be set. So I set a boundary so that so let's use physical boundaries as examples. So somebody builds a house and then puts a fence on it, uses electric mesh and whatever it is. This is my boundary. This is my space. No one is allowed to peek into. Nobody is allowed to unless I open my gate for you to enter. Right? So that's like a physical boundary. In that same way, you're saying mentally, I create this boundary so that I only allow whoever to come through and basically, right? Okay. My question just disappeared from my mind. What I was going to ask you. Give me a typical example of setting a boundary and what action would show that a boundary has been set.
Okay, so over time, a lot of people would say people are not time conscious. And that's, for me, one thing that I pay attention to. Time is everything. It's money. It's who you are. And so when I have put that thought in mind, I want people to reflect, I wanted to reflect on other people for them to realize that I am time conscious. I think the first time I was here, you said that. The second time you said it. And it became something that you constantly will see. And so, yes, mentally, I have psyched myself. I have decided to put in mind that, okay, if I could think negative about something, why can't I think positive about a certain situation? So I have psyched myself to a point that I have set that boundary. I wouldn't let any negativity into my head, into my space. For me to think negative, the same level of energy could actually go into being positive about the mindset or the things that you're embracing. So I would say these two become typical examples of how you can actually shape your mind with boundaries.
Okay. Again, in essence, from what you're saying, I get that boundary affects branding. Yeah. So whatever boundary you set sort of has a way of giving the other person a perception about you or who you are, right?
Sure.
So don't come this close, right? If you don't come this close and you're kept at that level, when that person walks away, oh, this person, they don't like to be treated this way, they don't like to be treated that way, yada, yada, yada. We'll see how far is too far. But let's limit again, let's bring the conversation down to specificity. Let's come to the office. Let's say the office, because it looks like boundary is needed in every kind of relationship, work, family, church, everywhere you find yourself. So let's say the workspace. What kind of boundary does a person need in the workspace?
Okay, so for you to be able to have team cohesion in the workspace, you should be able to relate with people appropriately. In my workspace, I don't bring my family issues in there. Okay. So for you to come into my family space, it means that beyond work, we have another boundary that you fit in. So in the workspace, you would want to pay attention to just work. The relationships you have in the workspace should perhaps sometimes be limited in that working environment. For example, I work in a studio like here, and beyond me being on TV, I don't want a certain part of my life equally out in the public space. And so when I come here, everything I do should be centered around why I'm here, the reason. So in setting boundaries, you need to know exactly what you want to achieve. I want to be a brand consultant, so I make sure that throughout my stages of life, every action I put across was actually towards the case that I wanted to be branded in a certain way. I wanted people to appreciate me in a certain form. And so I presented that to them. Other things I didn't open up to them with my work, you cannot come into that space unless I permit you. And permitting you means I may have actually opened a certain door or opened a certain conversation that brings it in. So in the working space, you want to control what you are communicating to other people. In essence, relationships, as in your erotic relationships and whatnot, shouldn't come into the space because it is work. I know in certain cases where people are actually having affairs in the office. When that comes into play, remember that work would be affected, whether positively or negatively, because maybe you connect much well with the person you have an affair with, or you do not connect well with other people in the space. And so how you would relate with these people will tell whether there are boundaries set or not. You want to pay attention to these areas that will help you shape the boundaries that you have in the office space. Work is work. Things that happen in the office, stay in the office. I'm sure that sometimes when you even get the work appointment offer, they indicate to you the boundaries of the office. Certain things you can do, certain things you cannot do. Data you can share, data you cannot share. Maybe internet facility, even applications and other things you use in the office are not supposed to go beyond a certain boundary. So if you go against these things, it brings repercussions upon you as a person. You may either be sacked or any other thing. So you want to pay attention to these boundaries that are set in the office space.
Could the opposite also be true, where you don't bring your love life or your romantic affair in a workspace?
Absolutely.
Could the opposite be true? Do you take work into your... So let's come to romantic relationship now between you and a person. You love each other so much and all that. Why is it free? Why is it easy to discuss work and have work? Okay, in fact, let me not put the question. Is the opposite true? Should you bring your work into your romantic relationship?
It depends on the two and what they've agreed to work with.
Why is that okay and then the other
no,
is not okay?
in the office, it's not okay.
Okay.
In the house or in whatever relationship, it's not okay. But it depends on the two.
Okay.
So a typical example is the affair I mentioned in the office. You may be having that affair, so you're discussing things beyond the office, even in the office space, which is not supposed to happen. But the two of you have that understanding that, okay, even though we are together, once we're in the workspace, it's work. After work, we can talk about all the other things, even though it's in the premise. However, if you go out of the office and you want to still talk about other things in the office, or if you don't even have your partner in the office and you want to talk about other things, you need to respect certain boundaries that the office has. Because there are certain data, certain information that you cannot share with your partner, no matter how much you love the person. Because you've signed a certain agreement and you need to maintain that non-disclosure to that person or that office that you're operating in.
I'm curious to know, are there boundaries in church?
Yes, there are.
What kind of boundaries?
There are certain boundaries, like you cannot marry from other churches. It's a boundary.
Oh, no, I'm not.
There are boundaries that you cannot actually lift or go up the pulpit as a woman, because that is what the church believes. Whereas I fellowship, women do not lead in certain areas. Yes. And so it is a boundary that they've set for the church. So there are obviously boundaries in churches.
So there are boundaries everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think people find it difficult to set boundaries sometimes?
It's because they fear rejection and what people would say at the end of the day. Because they don't want people to say, okay, on penny, very nosy, this person does not want to be close to people. And at the end of the day, if you're not careful, some of the boundaries that you set will actually pull people away from you. And that may affect your emotions and equally your mental health. So when you're setting boundaries, one of the key things you want to pay attention to is your own comfort, self-care. If it is not comfortable for you, do not do it. If it's comfortable for you and you can live with it, then go ahead. Nobody will stop you, because that is what you want to do. And remember to always stay assertive, whatever boundaries that you're setting. If that is what you want, go for it, 100%. Whatever comes with it, be prepared to embrace it.
Can you set these boundaries? Can people set boundaries and still be loving?
Yes.
Be loving people?
Yes. Boundaries does not mean you're not loving. You're just making sure that nobody comes to disrespect you or disregard you as a person. Your worth, your value is important when you're setting boundaries. And so if the person who is coming in is not going to disrespect any of that, why can't you offer the love that is there?
Okay. Do you think there are legitimate boundaries and there are illegitimate boundaries?
Legitimate, yes. To whoever is setting the boundaries, it's legitimate to them. But you on the other side may think that it's not legitimate. And so
It sounds like, sorry to cut you, it sounds like every boundary can be justified.
Yes, to whoever is setting them, they justify it. So it may be legitimate to them.
Could it be legitimate still?
Yeah.
But the person believes that it's legitimate?
Yes. I remember I mentioned worth and value. Once you think these are very core things to you, it's legitimate. If you can defend it at any point, it's legitimate. So you go ahead with it.
And how do you deal with people who you genuinely hurt by your boundaries?
Okay, so in my previous submission, I mentioned the fact that you have to come to a compromise. And in communication, the spiral of silence in communication tells you that many people feel that if they speak up, they may be pulled away, or even what they have to benefit would not come to them. And then in that case, they may not stay assertive with the boundaries that they are setting. However, remember, if you're able to speak up, you're able to take a certain position of what decision you are making and be able to stay consistent with it, the people would learn to respect you. However, if you want the person to maintain that feeling of knowing that, okay, this person has made a decision, I ought to respect it, you should learn to communicate it back to them, or let them understand the need or the reason why you have to pull away or make certain things happen. A typical example is a friend asking you for money. Realistically, you may have the money, but I, for one, I do not know how to come and ask you for my money once I've given it to you. I think when you set the day and you say you give it to me at 10 a.m. or 2 p.m., at 2 p.m.,
you expect that.
I expect that you should be able to go by it. And beyond that, I cannot come attacking you. I know money can set certain relationships to a certain path that you wouldn't love. So it's important that when you're coming to ask me for money, I have to pay attention to what exactly I can offer. Or maybe I can throw in some suggestions here and there so I don't have to come and deal with all that drama that comes with it. However, I have to learn to communicate it with you for you to understand that I may not be able to support you the way you want me to, but I can assist with something little. And in my mind, I know that if you don't pay that money, I'm fine. I'm comfortable. So you have to learn to communicate that effectively and clear to whoever it is that will receive your boundary that you've set.
Let's talk about effective communication, like you're saying. You find that in some cases, people who are setting boundaries will just go silent. They will not say anything. They just leave it there. You've got to tell me, you have to tell me if that is okay or not, and then also tell me how to deal or how to handle people that you genuinely care about, you love, but you know that I have to set these boundaries. How do you, this effective communication you're talking about, how do you do that without necessarily hurting the people? How do you effectively communicate that? Okay, so I have things I'm doing. I have school, I have work, I have other things I'm doing. So you will not get my time like that. Like people want to take you out and all that. You can't get my time, my energy, and my love like that without necessarily, hurting the people.
So, like I said previously, it's a swing. What I feel is good for me is what I'm doing. For me to get you to understand, I need to have put you through a certain process of understanding it. So explaining it to you will help. Sometimes,
so
for example,
is very crucial.
It's very important. And you know,
people don't want to explain.
Communication is only communication when there's an understanding. So if, for example, in the typical Ghanaian set, we talk about menewayaka. If menewayaka, you know genuinely you hurt me or something happened for me to pull away, you should know. There's an understanding. Even in silent communication, you know that the person has been able to tell you that, no, what you did, I didn't like it. And that's the way they want to block you from actually hurting them back again. So you know. It doesn't always have to be verbal. There are non-verbal communications here and there. And so ideally, whoever is setting that boundary and the receiver should have that conversation, a clear-cut conversation, effectively. I don't like this. When you do this, I hate it. In my home, everybody knows that I don't like a lie. No matter how tiny it is, if you tell it and I find out, that's it, we are done. So if you want to go into that space, you're already processing the thought, okay, she's done. Nothing will let her come back to you because the likelihood that you repeat the same thing is present. It's not to say I won't forgive you, but I don't want to go through that trauma of having to accept that you lied and then maybe you may lie again. So typically, you should be able to communicate these things to the people. There are cases that you've communicated and the person is constantly ignoring your then you have to rethink whatever decision you made about that relationship you have with that individual. A typical example, a friend sees you and calls you by a certain name. You don't like it. You've constantly told them you don't like it. You need to begin to withdraw in a certain way for them to know that you don't genuinely like it. And so communication in that way, you, the person setting the boundary, should be clear on what exactly you're looking for. And then if they are not working, have a rethink or have a relook at the relationship that you have with a person.
We've talked about people setting boundaries. Let's talk about the people who receive boundaries and how they're also supposed to react and behave. So what should be a person? So you're let's say in an office space or even in family or friendship, regular friendship, you realize that there's a non-verbal communication of a certain boundary set. You are not sure what it is, okay? For some people, you realize that as soon as they see that attitude, they're like, okay, you know what? You're going to give me that, I'm going to give you the same. Yeah. You know, there's some people who get very confused. They're not asking questions. They're like, well, what have I done to this person? Why is this person behaving this way? And they may genuinely not know what they've done wrong and why you're behaving the way you're behaving. What should be the reaction of anyone who senses or feels like a certain boundary is being set?
Okay, so in the Akan dialects, there's an adage that says, Obisafo on your coin. So if you're Obisafo on your coin.
Obisafo, okay.
Yeah, so the one that asks for direction does not miss the road, literally. And so if you're with somebody or if you have a relationship with someone and you realize there's a gap, boundaries have been set, and you don't understand a certain language or a certain communication they're sending towards you, you should find ways to get to ask questions. So you should ask. There are people that may not be able to speak it up because of their personality traits, the things that they possess as individuals. There are people that when you hit them 1, 2, 3, they may embrace it. Other people, first try, forget it, they are done with you. The other people that are open to communication or conversations, others are not open to conversation. So as you are as a person, the receiver of the boundaries, you should know that just as you would also make certain decisions and would want other people to accept you, when people make it towards you, you should learn to accept that they equally have their minds and the things they want to accept or embrace. However, it's important that you ask. If the person hasn't communicated it, it's important you ask. It's both ways. There's nothing that works alone. For you to exist as a human being, you need human beings to exist. You need partners, you need things and tools to make things happen for you. And these things are operated by humans. And you ought to communicate. Even with the cameras and whatnot, if you don't communicate or you don't give it a prompt, it would not act the way you want it to act. And so it's important that there's dialogue. The two parties have to dialogue to be able to come to an understanding of what the boundaries are and then respect them and stay with it.
So I have a lot of examples here of certain boundaries, and you will help us on how to deal with them. Okay. But before I come to that, let's call a spade, and let's be honest with each other. Are certain boundaries selfish?
Yes.
They are, aren't they?
They are. But again, it can be explained. To whoever it is may not feel that it's selfish. It's just perhaps they giving themselves care. But in the other person or the receiver's mind, it may come off as being selfish. So yeah, it's okay. It's selfish.
And you realize that sometimes even when you set boundaries for yourself, you're overridden by, or you're overwhelmed by your own boundaries because you're like, I said I'm doing this, but you rethink a lot of things. And you're like, maybe it's not like that. Maybe it's not like that. Maybe. How do you remain steadfast? How do you remain strong in whatever you've decided that I'm going to do?
Be assertive. You have to constantly prompt yourself and say, this is what I wanted, and I'm sticking to it. Regardless of what is coming with the problems and the good, the bad, the ugly. Whatever it comes with, I'm embracing it. So a typical example is making sure that you look good. If you say I'm going to look good all the time, you don't care whether someone says your makeup is wrong or your dress is out of place.
Or you look like a slave queen.
They don't care.
It's none of their business.
All that you care about is the fact that you feel you look good. So it's a decision you make, and then everything that comes with it, you embrace it. And how you shoulder it is up to you.
Okay. Question keeps disappearing from my mind. You feel embarrassed and hurt when your partner jokes about your body to his friends. Okay, you've asked them to stop in the past and they told you to lighten up. They were just joking.
So this is one part of relationship or the partnership relationship thing that I sort of have a problem with. Before the relationship begins, I think two parties are involved. There should be dialogue. The things you like, the things you do not like, and respect should come to play. Why are boundaries set? They're set so that there's that sense of respect attached to whatever it is relationship that you guys are building. And so, yes, you are my partner. You're doing something I don't feel comfortable with. Once I notice that I don't feel comfortable with it, I should be able to dialogue it out with you. Don't do this in front of your friends. I don't feel comfortable. If the person constantly is repeating it, then I don't think that's the relationship you want to be in. And I find a lot of people come into the office and talk about the fact that my partner is not listening. You are not paying attention because they're not ready to listen. They're not ready to respect the space you find yourself, the boundaries that you have. And so you have to walk away. Unless you want to compromise and stick in there, then you have to shut up and then embrace the boundaries that they are not respecting. But if you want them to respect it, I think the appropriate thing is to walk out of that space.
I like to play the devil's advocate. Do you think genuinely for everyone they are not really listening, or perhaps certain circumstances they're distracted, or they are not, do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get it.
They are not necessarily not listening. You know, sometimes they say that men take things for granted, you know, so it may not necessarily be that this person is not listening. They feel like, come on, I know what I'm saying.
So in the personality traits and the personality types that we have the sanguine, choleric, and the phlegmatic, melancholic. If you're with let's say a sanguine. And your mind, you have studied who a sanguine is, and the sanguine is playing around certain words and all that around you. Obviously, you can learn to compromise.
Exactly.
But if you do not know these components of that individual, how then do you compromise? And at the end of the day, whoever the sanguine is, imagine you're with a melancholic person.
Yeah.
You should know that a melancholic person does not like certain things. They want certain things in a certain order. And so if you have agreed to be with that kind of personality, you should learn to compromise and listen to what they're equally sharing with you. So the two of them have to come to an understanding before any of them can actually feel comfortable with the other partner.
You're in a new relationship with someone you like a lot. They want to get more physically intimate, but you're not ready.
Communication. I'm not ready is I'm not ready.
Not everybody understands that.
That is
we shouldn't do this now.
That is why it's a partnership before it becomes marriage or any other thing. You're not married to me. And culture-wise, religion-wise, whatever-wise, as partners and you have not even graduated, let's say they are not yet married, certain things are there you are perceived not to be doing. And so if at that stage I'm able to tell you that I don't like a certain thing, you should know why I don't like it. Your first question should be, is there a challenge? What is causing you not to want it at that period of time? Maybe the person may be in their time, you may not know, or they just haven't had a good day and they just don't want to get into that space. You should know the soft spot of your partner and then the hard spot of your partner. That helps you to coexist appropriately. And so yes, dialogue is important. If I don't like it, probe further. Ask, why don't I want it at this point? Okay, I can understand. But maybe for the men, majority of the time they talk about the blue balls and all that. We know it's a charade. We know that if you don't get it, it is.
It's not a charade.
It is. Sometimes
on behalf of all men, it's not a charade. Of course, do men take advantage of it? Yes, they sometimes use it as, but it is not a charade.
Oh, really?
It is not.
Nobody died.
It's like me saying your period pain is not real.
No. But nobody died.
Of course, nobody died.
Exactly. So they shouldn't make it look like if it doesn't happen, I'm going to die.
I agree with you. I'm saying that there are men who definitely take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, sometimes you are dying.
If you can understand my menstrual pain and say, okay, yes, at this point she's in pain, I don't want to go close. I understand that when her mood thing comes, it means that this is what she's going through. When he equally feels that way, you should understand that if you don't give it to him, there's a challenge for him. And so either the two of you are going to agree and go with it, or find a way to understand that.
Yes, please. Thank you very much. I prefer that to saying that it's a charade. Because
some of them do make it a charade.
Some definitely do. I like this one, especially because it destroys a lot of friendships. Your friend knows you're a bit well-to-do, and so they always ask you for money because they assume you have it in abundance. Even this is among family members. You're a bit uncomfortable with this setup. How do you set financial boundaries without feeling like a jerk or feeling like you're abandoning your family?
So I would offer something. I may not be able to offer everything. But I'll present a solution around that area. Maybe about 20% of whatever you're looking for. Yes, because I don't want you to go thinking otherwise of me. However, in the case where I am a very firm person, if I cannot do it, I'll tell you I can't do it. I actually don't care what you're going to think about me or what. Whether I do it or I don't do it, when you talk, you talk. If you will think a certain thing, you will think it. Personally, I don't know about other people, but realistically, you should be able to meet them at a certain point because they're expecting something of you. And for they to even think that you are in a certain space where you can support means that there's respect or there's a sense of appreciation to you as a person. And so you should at least meet them at a certain point and then be able to support if you can.
Last one, your boss is always calling you on the weekend to do one thing or the other. You also have your own stuff going on, but you feel guilty when you try not to answer the call. You need a job too, but you need your free time to set stress to, let's say, be stress-free from the job and also make cash on the side. How do you set the boundary? Weekend is not part of your job.
Dialogue.
And then they keep
Dialogue.
calling you.
You see, for anything to happen, there should be understanding. If boss, it won't help me, it would not help me. If it will help me, I tried it once, twice, and I think, okay, now it's becoming a bit unbecoming. I should sit with you and then talk. A typical example, many people go into jobs, there are offers given to them on their appointment letter. They don't discuss it. You've been prompted that, okay, in the case of we needing you after work hours, you didn't even look at it in the first place. So to the boss, they know something like that is in the clause. And you didn't read it, and then perhaps you didn't ask, so you don't know. So sometimes you have to go back to some of these contracts that you've signed, check if there was something in there like that. And if it's consistent and you can readjust it because it's not working for you, just go ahead and go dialogue it out. Dialogue helps every situation.
Dialogue. Two more things before you go. What does an unhealthy boundary look like?
Who defines an unhealthy boundary?
Are there unhealthy boundaries?
Some people say there are, but I believe that, personal opinion, a boundary is set as healthy enough for whoever is setting the boundary. But for the receiver or whoever will sit somewhere and say it's not healthy, if you find something like that and you feel that it's not healthy, again, it's dialogue. Go back to that individual. There are people who have shut themselves away from people, and emotionally you see them drained. You see them dying away because now they don't speak with nobody, they are suffering, and because they felt rejected at a certain point, because of that, they withdrew. When you see things like that, ideally, you may think that it's a bad or a negative one, and so you want to help that individual. The question is, do they want the help? Some people may not want it at all because you think they need it, but they may not. So it's still dialogue. Find the person or see where you think that there's a negative boundary that has been set and speak to the person about it. If you speak 1, 2, 3 and the person is not responding, give them a chill, give them a break. Allow them to be their own judge. That's what I mean.
And finally, are boundaries meant to be forever or for a period of time based on whatever situation you're dealing with? So perhaps, for instance, like you said, I'm in an office space, I'm setting a certain boundary. Is it throughout my entire time at the office, or is because I have tried certain things, it's affected me, and I want to deal with it? So it helps, gives you clarity, it helps, gives you space, it helps you fix certain challenges that you've encountered in the process. So, or generally, our boundaries, forever? Or do you at some point say that, okay, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve with this thing, so I'm okay?
Both ways, it works. When I say both ways, it works, is whoever is setting the boundaries should have a clear vision of what they want the boundaries to serve. Is it a long-term boundary or it's a short-term one? Example, like you said, the office space, how long are you even going to be in the office? There are people who have been working for certain companies for like 25 years, 30 years, and they're still in that space. There are people who came, they work for a year, and they're gone. And so, yes, in certain cases, it may be a lifetime. In certain cases, you may just adjust or set those boundaries because you find yourself in a certain situation and it's necessary you put that boundaries across. And so in both cases, it works.
What boundaries are you setting today? Do you set boundaries often?
Okay, so for me personally, I wake up to my little journal that I have designed. I use it for coaching. It's called the 48 Band Question Journal.
The 40?
8 brand question journal.
Brand question journal.
So I have my morning intentions and my evening reflections, which I write down. So I want to achieve certain things in a day. These are boundaries I want to set. I don't want to meet this person. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. And so at night, I go back to sleep. I reflect on these ones. Where was I able to achieve it? What did I need to make this work? If this wasn't able to work effectively, what can I do better about it tomorrow or tomorrow next? And so, yes, I set boundaries every day, every other day.
Did you set one today?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I'm not sharing. I'm not sharing.
Nana Alexis Obenewa Pugwajiman, thank you so much. Always. Where can we find you?
On social media, on my website, nanalexis.com. Social media is the Conversationalist NL. Conversationalist because I speak for a living. So,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you too. For having me.
Well, guys, that's it. We are discussing wearing heels. What are your favorite kind of? Wait, okay. So, well, I'm going to learn on Fashion Wednesday, but this one is this is 3 inches, 5. I shouldn't say it. Okay, so guys, let's learn how to walk gracefully in heels. Stay.